What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if everyone abandoned Naruto for a prophecy that didn't include him? But he unlocked a forbidden power even the gods feared. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. He babyish coos of Naruto Uzumaki was heard throughout the hospital as Kushina laid in her bed, snuggling a small figure who she had recently given birth to. Minato, the fourth Hokage, had sat next to her, his wife's hand clamped into his. Kushina was extremely sweaty and tired as she gave a small smile to Minato as she clutched her child dearly, Naruto watching as he sat on the stool he was told to sit in until Kushina called him. Naruto just continued to look down at his shoes which floated above the surface, now seeing that his 3 years as an only child were gone. "Hey, Kushina, what should we name her?" Minato cooed, playing with the child Kushina was clutching. Kushina just smiled, petting the soft baby's head. "We should name her Nato." She spoke softly, kissing the child's head. "That's perfect," Minato exclaimed, holding Kushina's hand warmly. Nato and Naruto Uzumaki, the next best kunoichi and shinobi of the village. Minato cheered, looking back at Naruto, who laughed. Kushina just chuckled, looking up at Naruto from her position on the bed. "I can't wait to see that day," she said tearily, wiping the tears that threatened to form because of her picture-perfect family. "I love you my children. We will never grow apart." It has been 1 year. Naruto is 4 years old, Nato is 1. Nato, due to the advanced training from her parents, can already speak broken sentences and realize what's going on around her, although her exact thought on the matter may be slightly off. Naruto on the other hand, ever since Nato's birth, has had to teach himself, often sneaking into the library and studying the things he needed to know for his classes in the academy, which were starting that year. He has started to learn basic ninjutsu, although he struggles, and has yet to be proven effective with any medical skill. Naruto gazed out of the window, thoughts of being noticed pleasing him. As he read a book at the dining table, the dim light filling his pages, he noticed a woman approaching his door. A lot of strangers had come to his house, demanding that they get the honor of destroying the Kyuubi brat, and had come with bats and knives. After Kushina and Minato has let them in, Naruto would run out the back window into the woods, one of his only safe places. Kushina pulled the door open, her face crinkling in confusion as she looked at the person in her doorway. It was an old woman, with graying hair and steely ivory eyes. She was thin and small, her entire figure giving off the vibe of fragility that only came from glass vases. She looked up at Kushina, a glare evident in her face as she spoke raspier, much like water hitting a flame. "You are Kushina Uzumaki, the strongest kunoichi in this village, correct?" The woman asked matter-of-factly, her stern eyes flicking up to Kushina's red hair. "Why yes, that's me. I'm afraid I don't know you. What are you here for?" she asked kindly, placing her hands in the pockets of her apron, disregarding the flour staining her hands. The woman just nodded, uninterested as she looked around Kushina, seeing a small blonde boy and a little girl. She gave a small smile as she gently picked Naruto up. "These are your children, correct?" she said gently, playing with Naruto as he giggled. Kushina gave gentle smile, picking up Nato and holding her to her waist. "Yes, these two are my bundles of joy," she said cheerfully, ruffling Nato's hair. The old woman proceeded to feel the infant's head, before she let out a gasp. Her eyes turned milky white as her voice suddenly became loose, watery, shaky. This child. The pain this child holds is unbearable, sinful," she said slowly, beginning to touch Nato's head with her long fingers. "These two will have quite the rivalry. You, unless you change your ways, will neglect one of your children, for holding something they cannot control. Underestimation is seen in your future if you're not careful. I cannot tell which sibling will rise, but one shall save the village in its gravest times." She finishes triumphantly, removing her hands from the children's heads as she let out a cough, as if the memories she was being given were choking her. Kushina was in awe, her fiery red hair laid limply at her sides as she looked at the woman, wondering if she was crazy. It took about a minute to process, but after the raw silence, Kushina broke out into rage. "How dare you say I neglect my children? I love both of them," she said angrily, snuggling Nato closer to her waist. The woman let out a scoff, petting Naruto's warm yellow hair. "Then why do you only clutch one child to your waist? Why do you let people in, alone with your son, who always stumbles out with a fresh bruise every time your citizens make a visit," she said coldly, setting down the child carefully as he giggled and stumbled away. Kushina just clutched Nato righter to her body, her eyes widening at the woman's accusations. She pointed to the door angrily as she growled, "Get out of my house, old hag. I love my children, despite your accusations," she growled, seemingly unaware of her starting to neglect. "Fine, you seem to not notice the process has already started. I will pray for this angel boy," she said kindly, watching Naruto stumble around the living room. Kushina rolled her eyes, done with the woman's prophecy foretelling. "Get out of my house, this prophecy is obviously fake." Kushina scoffed, crossing her arms. "As you wish," the elderly woman said softly, before disappearing, all but a wisp of smoke being left as the only reminder of her, which Kushina waved away quickly. The air was warm as Nato and Naruto gave a smile to the red-headed mother. Grabbing them by their waists, she snuggled them tight. "How could I neglect you? Tell me if you enjoyed." Story is under heavy editing, so not every chapter will have the same writing style. Naruto left out a huff as he ran barefooted. Rocks cut into his feet as he cursed Minato for not buying him shoes. Fear filled his body as he felt himself slowing down, a gray wall blocking any chance of escape. The clanking of weapons got louder and louder as Naruto clawed the wall, clawed so much that his fingers bled, before being tossed on the ground. Beginning to cry, Naruto hugged himself, refusing to look at the villagers. They were scary, menacing, and somewhat insane. Whimpering as the villager turned him over, he let out a blood-curdling scream as he felt a kunai dig in his skin. He yelled and yelled as the man carved letters into his back, spelling out, "Demon." Disregarding the tears, Naruto wept so loudly and so innocently. The rest of the night was hell for Naruto, burning, cutting, stabbing, bruising, all things Naruto had experienced before age 10. Clutching his bloody stomach, the villagers left soon enough, leaving Naruto to cough and cry under his breath. Weakly picking himself up, Naruto started to journey back home. He knew he would be punished by Kushina for being late, but he couldn't move any faster than he was. Dizziness hit him in waves as he stumbled to one side before falling over. His eyelids were heavy as they slammed shut, revealing a large orange fox. The Nine Tails. Naruto looked up at the Nine Tails curiously, who growled at him before speaking. "Who dares to enter my cage?" he growled again, looking at Naruto menacingly. Naruto just coughed and looked up at him, raising his hand. "Me, Mr. Kyuubi, sir. Do you have a name?" Naruto asked calmly, wanting to know the demon that sat within him. The Kyuubi no Kitsune was astonished, a boy, wanting to know more about the very demon that had made him have the unhappy childhood he lived through. "It's Kurama, and yours?" the Kyuubi said somewhat endearingly, standing on his paws. Naruto beamed a smile and laughed. "It's Naruto Uzumaki. Next Hokage." He giggled, pointing to Kurama wistfully. Kurama just nodded, watching Naruto check his watch. No, I'm late. Kushina's going to kill me," Naruto yelled, waking up as Kurama spoke in his mind. "Do they hurt you, kid?" Kurama asked quietly, pacing around his cage. "Yes, they do. As soon as I learn ninjutsu, I'm leaving," he muttered under his breath as he raced home. "We can run away tomorrow. I'll teach you," Kurama offered, looking up into Naruto's mind. "That'd be great." Naruto smiled, knocking on the door quietly. The door then opened. Kushina pulled open the door, her sharp features menacing against the inky black sky that wove around Naruto. Kushina scoffed, her voice angry. "Where the hell have you been?" she asked coldly as she looked down at Naruto's small bloody figure. Holding back tears from the memory, he began to speak. "The villagers. They called me a demon. They beat me," Naruto said painfully before he was cut off. A burst of pain grew in Naruto's cheek as Kushina's hand rose. She growled, "Lies. The villagers would never hurt anyone. Get out of my sight." She spat, Minato glaring from his position on the couch as Nato smirked. Begrudgingly, Naruto headed up the stairs to his freezing room. He sat on the cold floor, setting up a mind link with Kurama. Naruto loved the darkness. He could slink through streets and not be seen. Naruto walked into a shoe store. The counterman, seeing who he was, scowled, and didn't help Naruto fit the shoes. After Naruto decided on wearing some blue sandal shoes, he brought them to the front counter looking down. "Ah, so the little brat needs some shoes." Yes sir, I do need some shoes. Ah. Well, I don't think you deserve shoes. Instead of 20 yen, how about 50 yen? But see, that's my deal, take it or leave it. Naruto reluctantly pulled out his froggy wallet, and slowly pulled out some yen. Slamming the money on the table, Naruto grabbed the box of shoes, and walked out the door. Sitting outside the door, Naruto slid on the blue shoes, and ran off into the forest, for some long grueling training. Hey, kid, don't you need a change of clothes? No, all they have is fake Anbu costumes. I want to be a real Anbu, one day. Okay kid, push those heavy stones by the river over here, and use them as weights. 15 on each arm, and 20 on each leg. Do 200 laps, get on it kid. What? Kurama, I'm only 4. You handled all those beatings, and ran away from home. This should be nothing. So Naruto ran all night, while Kurama egged him on, and told stories while he ran. Nato felt bad for her older brother. Mom wasn't very nice to him. Nato wondered if him getting beat was true. Or if he was just making it up. Maybe Naruto would want to play. Nato walked up the wooden steps, and knocked on Naruto's door. Nato heard nothing. Deciding to take action, Nato pushed open the door, to find nothing but an old cot and white walls. There was one 90-page book on the floor labeled, "Why Naruto Shouldn't Be Here." Nato pulled it up to find all the villagers' signings, and her parents. On each page was a message on how he should die, how he should leave. Nato couldn't believe it. Even her parents had written in it. Nato threw the book on the worn old cold cot, and thought about her room. There was a big heater in it, with pretty colored walls, and a huge toy bin. Her bookcase was filled with gifts, and compliment books. She had gotten an iPad, just yesterday. Climbing off the floor of Naruto's room, Nato walked down the steps, and asked her parents, who were sitting at the dinner table. Where is Naruto? Who? They both asked at the same time. You know, Naruto, my big brother, and your son? He's not in his room? He hasn't come down in 3 weeks. I haven't noticed, did you check his room? He's not there. Kushina and Minato raced up the stairs only to see the dusty old cot, the blank white walls, and the hate book that they had given Naruto when Naruto begged for a book, so he could learn how to read. This is all our fault. Kushina shrieked. The lady warned us about what would happen if we neglected him, and look what happened. Minato held the falling Kushina, and said, I'll find him, I promise. Naruto was mediating. He peeked one eye open, and said, Hey Kurama? What kid? You think they've noticed I'm gone yet? I don't know kid, I honestly don't know. I wonder what chakra affinities I have. You wanna check? Naruto blinked. You can check? Of course kid, here make a triangle sign with your hands. Whoa, what happened? The earth jumped out of ground, and grew into little spears. Okay, so earth is one of your affinities, now get a piece of paper from your bag, and hold it in between your index finger and side finger. Wow, what happened? The paper wrinkled and then got all wet and crumbled. So you also have water and wind affinities. Oh, this is taking too long. I'm just going to scan your brain and see all your affinities. WHAAAT? What is it Kurama? Why you have every affinity ever known. From dust to magnetic. You even have a lava affinity. YAAA. Naruto cheered. This means more work kid. Yes, Kurama, Naruto said enthusiastically. Minato asked Jiraiya once again if Naruto had been seen at all in his secret spy service. Afraid not, Sonny. Where could he be? Minato yelled, pulling his hair. Shush. Be quiet Minato, I'm trying very hard to find him. Well, not hard enough, it's been 7 years, he should be 11 now. I'm sorry Minato, but if he wants to come back he will, he obviously left for a reason. Minato fell to his knees. The reason is my neglect, he whispered. Hey kid, you sure you're ready to head back? It's been 7 years. I doubt they even remember me. You never know? Kurama said, shrugging one of his tails. I guess we will just have to find out. Don't be scared kid, you can defend yourself now. Actually cover your face, and buy an Anbu mask. Time to fulfill your path to becoming Hokage. Become an Anbu. Like you wished for 7 years ago. Thank you so much Kurama, I'll be the best Anbu ever. Start the path, before I change my mind. As you wish, Kurama. Naruto said as he jumped through the trees, and to the Leaf Village gates. Clutching an Anbu mask Naruto had bought from Kakashi. It was a white hard mask with blue lines that looked like a fox. Good thing Kakashi didn't know Naruto, or else he would have reported to the Hokage right away. Strolling to the Hokage's office, or his dad's office, he knocked on the door. He heard a murmuring, "Come in." "Hello, Lord Hokage." "Hello, but may I ask, who are you?" "A simple person wishing to be part of the Anbu Black Ops." Haha. The Hokage laughed. "Oh, you're serious," he said, clearing his throat. "Based off your height, I don't know, 10 or 11. Sir," Naruto barked. "Nice kid," Kurama intervened. Naruto really wanted to tell Kurama to shut up, but talking to his mind in front of the Hokage would just make him look insane. The Hokage looked taken aback. Nobody had spoke to him with so much force. "Yes? Didn't Itachi Uchiha become an Anbu at 13? "Yes, but he was a prodigy." "Why makes you think I'm not?" "Okay, if you're so confident, please show me your best 3 justice." "As you wish, sir," Naruto said, bowing. First, Naruto did the almighty push, which made everything in the office tumble and fly. Next, he did a lava jutsu, which caused wherever he stepped to turn into a puddle of lava, and soon spread. The third and final one was a Rasengan, but mixed with a shuriken too. So he threw his Rasengan and the entire building fell. But all the blocks fell far away from the people. Then with one final jutsu, the place was built back up to its glory. "Good enough, sir?" Naruto asked, emotionless. The Hokage, who was very shaken up, nodded, and asked, "Who is the real identity behind the mask?" "None of your business, my past is mine to know, not you. Just register me as Nifox." "As you wish," the Hokage spoke. Naruto took off his mask. It felt strange. Peering at the water, he hated himself. The blue eyes, and neon yellow hair, that made him look so much like the people who had hurt him. Peeling off his sweaty Anbu clothes, he changed into an old orange and blue jacket with orange pants. Pushing open the door of the Uzumaki household. The family was unaware of why anyone would walk in during dinner time. As if acting as he was gone for an hour, Naruto held his bag and trudged up to his room. He didn't make it far until Kushina yelled, "Naruto? Is that you?" "Yes, Lady Kushina. Call me Mom. As far as I knew, I never had a mother." Kushina gasped and sat back down. She thought, "It's my fault. I treated him horribly, that's why he's like this." Minato rubbed Kushina's back, as said, "Oi, Naruto, welcome home. As far as I knew, I never had a home either." Minato felt like his search had gone to nothing. He hurt his family. He had to fix this. "Hi Naruto Ni-chan, don't call me your brother." "Why?" "Because I have no family." "But we are your family." "I never had a family." And then Naruto stormed up the stairs into his room, which was covered in dust, and left the Uzumaki household to think about what they did to their son. Not bothering to deal with his family. Naruto left 2 hours early, and had breakfast at Ichiraku's. Changing into his Anbu clothes, Naruto reported to the Hokage's office. "Hello, Lord Hokage. Hello Nifox. Would you care to be a mentor?" "Depends for who." "Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, and Nato Uzumaki," Minato said while reading them off the list. "It will be hard though, considering you are a captain of Anbu Black Ops, and are required to do most SS missions." "No problem," Naruto said as he spoke through the mask. "Who are you?" Minato asked. "None of your business." Then Naruto jumped out of the window to meet his students. "Come on, let's do it." Nato cheered. "Yeah, let's do it." Sakura cheered. "He won't fall for it." Sasuke spoke as the two put an eraser between the door. "This is what he gets for being late." Nato grumbled. Naruto walked up the hallway ready to open the door, before seeing the eraser. Child's play, Naruto thought. As Naruto opened the door, and the eraser fell, Naruto shot his hand up, grabbed the eraser, and threw it, nearly hitting Nato. He threw it so hard it broke through the classroom walls and went elsewhere. Sakura fangirled and said, "Wow." Nato said, "Amazing." And Sasuke just sat there. "Hello." Sasuke said, "Hi, mister." Sakura said, "Hello. I'm your favorite, right? I'm the Hokage's daughter. I can tell him to give you a raise." Nato said, fluttering her eyelashes. "You are no more special than the others." Naruto said emotionlessly. Nato's face turned red as tomato. "Now, where we?" Naruto asked. Nato then said, "Why should we respect you? You're like 11 years old." Naruto then replied coolly and sarcastically, "Because I am the youngest Anbu ever registered, the highest and most respected Black Ops captain, most SS missions ever done, and stronger, and faster than the Hokage. I could beat you, or put you back in the academy anytime I wanted for disrespect, so show some respect." Nato shrieked. Everyone had to respect her. She was the Hokage's daughter. But I'm the Hokage's daughter. Being the Hokage's daughter changes nothing. You're just like everyone else. If that really mattered, why are you not at the top of the class? You're the Hokage's daughter, aren't you? Naruto whispered. Nato said in a reply. That's what I thought, Naruto said. Now, everyone stand up. Sasuke, Sakura, and Nato stood up. Meet me at the training grounds at 5 a.m. Don't bother eating or you'll throw up. Then with that Naruto jumped out the window and off into the village. He's kind of strict but kind, he opened my eyes. That's kind of dreamy. He's so strong, not like Naruto though. Nato sighed. He's cool, he shut you all up. Sasuke said. Sakura looked down. Naruto was going up to his room until Kushina called, Naruto, join us for dinner. Naruto then coming down said, oh, I thought I was going to starve like the first 4 years of my life. Kushina felt shame. 7 years, still has a grudge. Minato tried to throw a fake punch at him, and scare him like he did with Nato, but Naruto caught the punch, and sent him flying to the other side of the house. Sorry, Naruto murmured as he held his hand out to pick Minato up off the floor. It's okay, Minato said. Nato then started speaking about her dreamy strong Anbu instructor, who would one day recognize her for her greatness and would praise her. In your dreams, Naruto sneered under his breath. What did you say, useless? Nato yelled. I said in your dreams. Naruto spoke back. You wanna fight? Against me? Sure, Naruto said coolly, taking his stance. Minato and Kushina stood there. Okay, how about a little after dinner spar? Kushina said happily. Minato then added, it will be good for training. Nato took the Uzumaki stance, and asked, what stance is that? Looking at Naruto. The stance that I used when I started teaching myself 7 years ago. Whatever. I'll be Hokage easily, and beat you so fast. Keep telling yourself that, Naruto said as he stood on the dewy grass. HMPH. Nato smirked back. Well, are you just going to stand there or are we going to fight? Naruto yelled. Nato charged her Rasengan and lunged at Naruto. Not expecting Naruto to jump over her, she fell down. Naruto used the leaf barrage and slammed his foot down on Nato's head. Nato, really mad, threw a punch at Naruto, who easily deflected it and sent her flying back. Slowly turning into Sage mode, Naruto made a triangle sign with his hands, and earth spears rose, rising Nato 2 miles up in the air. Flustered, Nato charged another Rasengan and hit the spear she was standing in. She fell along with the crumbling rocks and dirt all the way to the floor. Not trying to kill her, he sped up fast and caught Nato. After all, it was a 2-mile drop. Catching her, Nato punched Naruto in the face. He didn't move. He threw Nato on the ground and looked in her eyes. Genjutsu. Nato looked around. There were so many Narutos, but in the real world, she was just kicking air. Laughing, Naruto snapped his fingers and let her out of the genjutsu. Panting, Nato yelled, "Who taught you?" Me, Naruto said. Along with me too, kid. Kurama intervened. I will beat you, that Anbu will help me, it'll get so strong and leave you to be weak. Whatever you say, Naruto smirked. Then he walked off. As big bowls of ramen were being passed to the teachers, the conference commenced. Blanking out, Naruto realized that taking his mask off would be a necessity to eat the ramen. If he didn't eat it, he'd be looked down upon as disrespectful. Reluctantly lifting up his mask, Gai-sensei, Kurenai, Kakashi, and all the other teachers jumped up in the air at the sight of the best Anbu ever to live, was a mere 11-year-old. The 4th Hokage tried to peer through the people, but failed. Soon the ramen was done, and his mask was back on. And the 4th Hokage never saw it. I'm thinking of giving them the bell test, and assess their strengths, weaknesses, and ability to work as a team. Naruto spoke to the other teachers, as they discussed what they would do with their students. That's very good, Gai-sensei gushed. Ah, my team can't handle that, poor Hinata, very talented, extremely shy. Kurenai spoke sadly. I'll train her after my times. You would? Kurenai said, eyes open in shock. Sure, and then Naruto walked off. That night Naruto sat on a new bed instead of a cold cot, with a heater in the room. Opening a mind link to Kurama, he then spoke. Hi Kurama. Hey kid, what's up? Nothing, just smirking at how much you're going to kick ass tomorrow. Ha, Kurama. It's true. Yeah, I guess so. Then Naruto heard a knock on the door. Come in, Naruto said, not even rising from his bed. Hey Naruto, Nato said as she pushed open the door. What do you want? Naruto said, groaning and flopping on the bed. To say, I'm very sorry. I knew one of you would try to apologize. So am I forgiven? Nato said, beaming. No, of course not. Naruto said back. But why? You knew about my beatings, you let them abuse me, you saw what happened in this household to me. Yet, you did nothing. So don't try and say sorry now. But Naruto ni-chan. Don't call me that either. Naruto growled, throwing a book at her, which she partly dodged. Also, I heard what you said about you crushing on that Anbu, and how he's so strong unlike me. You. Exactly, now get out of my room, before I beat the crap out of you. Then Nato left. Naruto flopped down on his bed. Being forgived isn't that easy. Naruto stepped out of the Uzumaki household and into the cool foggy air. Ah, Kakashi. I know you're there. Kakashi stepped down from the tree, and high-fived Naruto. Naruto and Kakashi had gotten close over Anbu missions, saving and backing each other up when fighting criminals. Yo, how are your kids going to do today? I bet Nato will be selfish. Sakura will back up Sasuke, and Sasuke will try, get close, but still fail. Ah, don't underestimate the kids. I'm not, Kakashi. You never know, huh? Yeah, I'm going to my training grounds. See you later Naruto. See ya later Kakashi. Sakura tapped her foot on the concrete, her stomach growling. Why did I go on that no-dinner diet? She muttered. Naruto slipped down from the trees, and appeared behind Sakura. Hello. He spoke. Aghhh. Sakura said as she jumped back in fright. Where are the others? Naruto said, clamping his hands on his waist. I don't know, I can't help if they're late. I see. Nato grumbled, and slammed her alarm clock as she rolled over to check the time. 5:45. She was 15 minutes late to the test. Jumping out of bed, she slipped out of her pajamas. 5:47. Combing her hair. 5:50. Putting on shoes. 5:52. Eating breakfast. 5:56. Racing out the door. 5:57. Please don't start yet, she muttered to herself, racing to the training grounds. Sasuke sat in the trees and smirked. The test was going to be easy, if the teacher couldn't even sense his presence. Wanting to test him, Sasuke silently flew out from the trees, and aimed a punch at Naruto's head. Naruto said, yawning as he caught the punch, and sent Sasuke flying back in the bridge they were waiting on. Can't beat an Anbu Black Ops captain that easily, kid. Naruto said as he held out his hand, to pick up the now injured and dusty Sasuke. Sasuke muttered a HN, and then just got up, and slouched against a tree. Nato then raced in. Sorry, I'm late, she hollered. Why were you so late? Naruto asked. I slept in. Nato mumbled quietly. Okay, just don't do it again. Yeah, Nato said, brightening. Naruto then pulled out 2 bells. These 2 bells, you need to get them from me. Come at me with the intent to kill. Isn't that dangerous? Nato asked. Why? Scared? Naruto asked behind his mask. Grr. Nato went to punch and break his mask. Naruto caught her palm while reading a book, not ICHA Paradise. No, and threw her across the bridge. This is why I need you to come at me with the intent to kill. Hi, Sakura said, excited. HN. Sasuke grumbled. I will do it and become Hokage. Nato screamed. Naruto closed his eyes and yelled, go. He could sense Nato on the left, Pinky on the right, and Sasuke in the very back, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Naruto stood rigid. Finally, Nato jumped out of her space, and held her kunai in her right hand. You're going down, Anbu. Nato screeched. That's right, I am going down. Huh? Nato asked. Naruto shunshined into the ground, and barreled into the dirt, leaving a hole on the somewhat clean dewy grass. Not up, Nato said as she looked up. Not sideways. Nato looked to both sides. That could only mean. Nato looked down as gloved hands caught her ankles. Ahhhhhgh. Nato yelled as she was pulled in the dirt. Naruto jumped out of the dirt as Nato struggled. You're dead, Nato yelled. Okay, sure, bye. Naruto said calmly, and walked away. Grr, 1 down, 2 to go. Naruto thought. Sakura peered through the bushes. The Anbu was nowhere to be seen. She peered to her side, it looked just like the front. She peered to the back, it looked the same. Huh? Then she heard a proofing noise. She turned to face the pointed fox mask looking at her. Ah! Sakura screeched. Naruto grabbed her arms, and pulled her upside down. She passed out before he could even attack. That sucks. Oh well, 2 down 1 to go. Nato struggled, and the dirt eventually loosened, giving her space to move. I'm out, Nato said as she grinned, dusting the dirt off of her. Nato then saw a silver glint under a large tree. A bell? This is awesome. HMPH, that Anbu isn't all that. I mean, he dropped a bell. Haha. Idiot. Nato grabbed the bell only to be pulled up in the air by a rope disguised with leaves. What? Nato yelled. HMPH. I guess that Anbu isn't all that? Naruto spoke as he appeared. Let me down at once. Nato yelled. How about, no? And then Naruto shunshined away, leaving a yelling Nato. Sasuke closed his eyes, trying to unlock his Sharingan. Damn it. Sasuke grumbled angrily. Sasuke felt a small movement. Gripping his kunai, he looked around, not leaving his spot yet. Ha ha ha. Naruto laughed using voice projection. Sasuke looked around scared. Where could he be? Sasuke turned to behind him. Not there. Sasuke turned upwards. No. He turned sideways as 2 shadow clones from both sides came out flying and hit him with a flying face kick. Ag! Sasuke yelled. Sasuke, knowing he couldn't win, ran off into the trees, and surprisingly Naruto didn't chase after him. Nato smirked as she found the 3 lunches. She had cut the rope with the kunai, and fell down. She had trudged around to find a statue with 3 bento boxes on the concrete. HMPH. That Anbu sucks. He didn't even hide the bento. Naruto watched from the shadows before silently stepping behind Nato, and whacked her in the back of the head with his elbow. Huh? Nato yelled in surprise. Ah, trying to eat lunch yourself? Naruto asked. You're not a very good comrade. So? All my comrades suck anyway, they don't deserve food. Nato said smugly. Naruto snapped his fingers and suddenly Nato was tied to the post. Naruto then yelled lunch break, and Sakura and Sasuke shined to the posts. Don't feed Nato or you fail, Naruto said, and then shined away. Nato then kicked Sakura bento, and the food went flying. She caught some in her mouth, and laughed as Sakura growled. You bitch, Sakura yelled. Naruto then shined in, and said, Nato, back to the academy, now. No, Nato shrieked. Minato gasped in surprise as he stared at the ashamed Nato. What is the meaning of this? The Hokage demanded. Your daughter kicked Sakura's bento purposely during the bell test so she wouldn't get to eat. Naruto spoke. Nato. Minato yelled, his voice rising. I am sorry dad, I was hungry. Minato softened. As Hokage I demand you to give Nato another chance. Minato said as he glared at Naruto. Ah, so are we playing the favoritism card, Hokage? No. Minato stuttered, trying to come up with an excuse to give her daughter another chance. I'm sorry Hokage, but no matter what, I don't do special favors. Naruto spoke, getting irritated. I demand you damn freak. Nato yelled. I don't take demands from you. Naruto said, sneering. Shit, Nato thought. She had blew her chance for personal training, or dating him. His muscles showing through his black shirt. Nato's eyes veered as Naruto and the Hokage fought. Naruto then smacked his hand on Nato's and then turned it from his abs. Sorry, I'm not for staring. Naruto growled. Minato got on his knees and begged. Please, please for the love of Kami, give her another chance. Naruto sighed. Fine, but no personal training will be included, okay? Fine. Minato spoke. Nato's chances of being the strongest disappeared. Sakura beamed the next day. The Anbu teacher had stood up for her. The Anbu still hadn't shown her his mask, but she was sure one day that he would. They would love each other. Naruto barked, faster. Hinata paused. Hi Night Fox Sensei. Naruto and Hinata had trained for 2 nights now. She wasn't very good, but was getting better. She was very nice. Maybe one day Naruto would reveal the pain behind the mask, because he trusted her. Naruto smiled as Sasuke chidoried the tree, under his mask of course. Good job Sasuke, Naruto yelled. Sasuke's fist pumped his hand, still smoldering from the lightning. He was sure that he was the best, better than the Anbu, better than the Hokage, but still felt like a brother to no other than the masked Naruto. Nato smoldered. Instead of buying high-tech $10,000 ninja tools, she was sitting at home. She was only allowed to order $100 kunais instead. Damn you Anbu. I will get you back, one day. Nato growled at all her younger peers. In order to get back on the team she had to do 6 weeks of academy review. The Anbu had obviously had something else in mind, but her dad decided to go easy on her. She stared out the window. The Anbu was walking by on his way to the training grounds. Nato opened the window and threw a rock at the Anbu before shutting the window laughing. Seconds later the window shattered, the rock flying through. Naruto stared creepily at the window, intimidating with a mask on. Nato gulped and stared back at Iruka before the Anbu walked away to the training grounds. Damn Anbu. Nato cursed. Then she turned her head to Iruka, who was mad, and raising his fist, seeing Nato, broke the window. HMPH. Come at me Iruka, I'm the Hokage's daughter. She smirked. Then Iruka grabbed her by the ear and took her off to the Hokage's office. Naruto chuckled as he turned back to the track. He could hear Iruka's screaming and Nato's shrieking. Naruto checked his watch and decided to shunshin to the grounds. Sakura was there, and Sasuke was in the trees. Sasuke charged from the back trying to get back at his teacher. Naruto caught his palm and sent him flying once more into imprint in the bridge from his last encounter. So, report to the Hokage's office, Naruto said before shining away, leaving a pissed-off Sasuke and a deadly Sakura. Naruto shined to the office and waited for the two. They finally came, and so they entered the Hokage's office. Lord Hokage. Naruto set his hands in his pockets, obviously bored. Where are your students? The Hokage asked, bewildered. Then suddenly a sweaty Sakura and a pissed-off Sasuke barged through the door. Cha! Sakura yelled, trying to form a chakra punch and giving out a pathetic amount of killing intent. Ki. Haha, you call that killing intent? Naruto laughed before leaking out ki. Sakura held her throat. After a couple minutes she collapsed along with Sasuke. Naruto kept going until the Hokage had trouble breathing before stopping. Don't challenge me yet, Naruto said, emotionless. Sakura growled. Nato rolled her eyes before smacking a little kid's head. No you idiot, it's like this. Nato yelled at the poor academy kid. The little kid was shaking. He then dropped his kunai, which he had been training with, and ran away to the classroom nurse. I didn't hit the brat that hard, Nato mumbled angrily. Iruka walked up to the smoldering Nato. When I said help teach the students, I didn't mean hitting them into submission. Iruka growled. Haha, very funny Iruka. The only way to teach them is to make sure they know their place. Nato laughed sarcastically. And what is that? Iruka asked. Below me, Nato smirked. So no one else can be stronger than you? Iruka asked. Yes. I will be the Hokage, everyone will love me, and if not I'll beat them. Into loving me, Nato smirked happily. Well then, forget about being Hokage, because that is called a dictatorship. Iruka laughed. Nato growled, smacking her metal kunai in anger. A small cut formed on her arm. Give me top medical attention. I have a cut, Nato yelled. Iruka sighed. Go get a band-aid, big girl. Iruka smirked while walking away. Nato shrieked. Naruto sparred with Sasuke. Sasuke wasn't doing so well. Naruto had been using 64 points, which he had learned from the Hyugas. Sasuke fell down too weak to move. Naruto picked him up and took him to the Uchiha compound. Knocking on the door, a woman opened it up. It seemed to be Sasuke's mother. What happened? She asked, pulling Sasuke into her arms. Naruto nodded slowly under his Anbu mask and simply said, training. Then he shined away. Naruto sat on a boulder in the forest. He sipped water from the river next to him and had an overall calm sense. His mask sat next to him, and his dirty Anbu clothes next to it. He had put on a black muscle shirt and some black jeans. He put his head in a jug of cold water from the icy river. It felt refreshing. He felt stupid, his family, Nato, no one was accepting him. He wanted to love them again, but the cuts and scars ran deep, reminding him of those times. He would never forgive them, never love them. That's when the tears fell down. He broke down. I am the forest. You could hear the wailing of the boy. Who had? No one. Nato heard wailing. She put her ear to the window, and heard the faint screams. She smirked. It was probably some weakling who couldn't handle being a ninja. She broke the window, and ran out ignoring Iruka's screams. She started running faster, and faster, to show the kid who had disrupted her class, who was boss. Naruto heard the running of feet, and pulled on his Anbu clothes. He clamped on his mask, and set off through the trees. He then saw Nato enter the woods. It was her, he thought in disgust. Come out, Nato yelled. Naruto hid his chakra signature. Where did you go? Nato yelled. Naruto set off into the forest, and back to his home. Naruto reported to the Hokage's office. He was looking for a mission to relieve his pain. Hokage-sama, Naruto said, bowing with a look of disgust under his mask. Yes, Kitsune? Minato asked, nodding slightly. May I have a mission? Naruto asked. Minato nodded. I want you to find my son Naruto. He hasn't come home. Even if he'll never be as skilled as Nato, he has to live with us. He needs to learn how to control his jealousy. Nato tells me every time she sees Naruto she is mistreated. I need to make sure he is good, or else he'll bring shame to the Uzumaki Namikaze family. He needs to learn his place. Running away makes us look shameful. I'm supposed to look for him, but I'm sending you. Just knock him out, and plant memories so he doesn't hate us. Do you understand? This is an SS mission. Hi Hokage-sama. Naruto nodded. Once Naruto jumped out, he raced to the forest before landing a punch on the ground. It made a huge crater. That sick Hokage. He would dare erase his own son's memory just to not look shameful. What was next? Replacing him as clan heir? Naruto fell down to his knees. Why? Why is it always me who is hated? Naruto cried out. He then felt a buzzing behind his eyes. Everything had an electric blue tint. He looked around. What had happened? He entered back into the village. Walking in the village he ran into Neji. Neji and Naruto bumped together. Sorry Anbu. Neji said, shaking, staring at the emotionless mask. It's fine. Naruto said back. Neji held his shoulder. OWWW. Neji groaned. Here, let me take a look at it. Naruto said, holding his arm. He then shunshined to his house. Let me see it, Naruto said. Neji removed his hand from his shoulder. A huge bloody scrape was there. Naruto placed some disinfectant on it. Once Naruto touched the blood he felt a buzzing behind his eyes. Then everything turned purple. He shook his head. What was happening? After wrapping Neji up he sent him home. Once he left, Naruto raced to the mirror. He then ripped off his Anbu mask to see the lavender pupilless eyes of a Hyuga. Nothing other than the Byakugan. How did I get the Byakugan? Naruto yelled. He then decided to test if it was real. Summoning a blood clone he tried to do the sharp jabs that the Hyuga did. It worked. He kept jabbing till the clone fell down, obviously tired. He stared at himself in the mirror. I'm a Hyuga? Minato sighed. He fastened his paperwork together with a clip, and leaned back in his chair. Kitsune should have been back by now. He then started thinking. Was what he was doing wrong? No, it wasn't. It was for Nato's sake, so she could officially say she was admired by everyone in her family. If Kitsune couldn't find Naruto, then he must have hidden pretty well. Maybe if he made Nato clan heiress, Naruto would come back out of spite and jealousy? Yes, that was right. That was who Naruto was. A shameful son, who could never be strong. Naruto stared in shock at his hands. He flicked his eyes to the mirror to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. Deciding to keep it a secret, he headed to the Hokage's office to tell him that he couldn't find his shameful son. Upon getting there, the Hokage stared at Kitsune intently, waiting for the report. Kitsune finally shook his head. Minato threw up his hands. Kitsune, we need to find a way to get him out of hiding. I demand you guard my daughter's clan passing ceremony. This will draw my somewhat disappointment of a son back. Okay. We have a Sharingan user guarding. We have you guarding. All we need a Byakugan user. Go find one. The Hokage said, flicking his hand away as a sign to leave. I don't think that's necessary, Minato. Naruto spoke through his mask. Of course it is, Kitsune. Are you that stupid? I'm the Hokage, and you take orders from me. You're not nearly as smart, so listen to me now. The Hokage said, vainly angering Naruto. Naruto then took off his Anbu mask to reveal another mask. Only you could see his eyes. During the body search, Kitsune had been identified as blue-eyed. What was used to be a blue-eyed man now was a new addition to the Hyuga family. A Byakugan user. Minato gasped. Where did you get the Byakugan, Kitsune? Minato yelled, spooking the birds on the Hokage tower. Naruto just laughed. Not a genuine laugh. Not a happy laugh, but a real insane laugh. Did you really not notice your Anbu at all, Minato? Naruto growled. Never investigated their DNA, never investigated if under immense pain they could unlock something? Naruto continued. And no, Minato shivered, staring at the slightly crazy-looking Anbu. Well, under my own analysis I have discovered I have a Kekkei Genkei that allows me to copy certain bloodlines, Kekkei Genkeis and special abilities. Naruto spoke as the Hokage's mouth gaped wider and wider. We will test if this is true. Anbu, bring in the Mangekyo Sharingan user Itachi Uchiha. Minato yelled as the Anbu jumped off to find Weasel. Naruto glowered at Minato as he then asked. Who are you, Kitsune? He asked simply. Why would you care? Naruto sneered. As the Hokage was beginning to speak, Itachi jumped in, his onyx eyes in a questionable look. Why am I here, Hokage-sama? Especially on my day off? Itachi asked, narrowing his eyes. This will only take a minute, Itachi. We can have an SS class weapon here. Minato said, glaring at Itachi. Well, do your thing, Kitsune. Minato said, leaning back in his chair. Naruto pulled out a kunai and proceeded to cut Itachi's arm. Stop, Kitsune. Itachi growled. Naruto stopped and touched the crimson substance. He saw a flash of red and then stared at the Hokage. It's true. Minato stuttered. Itachi gasped. The Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi then smirked. Good job, Kitsune. He then said. Naruto laughed. Naruto rolled his eyes as he stood in front of the Hokage, with his students next to him. Lord Hokage, we would like to request a C rank. The Hokage shook his head. Absolutely not, you are not ready. Minato spoke. Lord Hokage, with all due respect, you are just denying us because Nato is still on probation academy review. Naruto spoke, obviously not caring about Nato's feelings. What are you talking about, Kitsune? The Hokage asked nervously. Due to Nato's misbehaving and inability to come to the mission, you're denying us like last time. Naruto spoke, obviously not happy with the Hokage's actions. No. The Hokage spoke timidly. Yes. Naruto spoke forcefully. You will give us a mission. Naruto growled. Fine. The Hokage spoke. You will protect Tazuna, the bridge builder, to the land of waves. Good. Naruto smirked before walking out. Sakura and Sasuke gaped at how fast he got a mission, and swayed the Hokage. Night Fox Sensei, do we meet at the gates? Sakura asked. Yes, pack enough stuff for a week, in 30 minutes. Naruto said to both Sasuke and Sakura, who nodded before running or jumping off the scene. Sakura packed some makeup, some hair conditioner, and some clothes. For ninja stuff she packed some kunai and shuriken. Is there anything else I have to bring? Sakura questioned. Probably not, Sakura said happily as she put the backpack on and headed to the gates first. Sasuke packed a change of clothes and a lot of ninja tools. He then also packed a snack and water. Sasuke shrugged. He was ready. Sasuke headed off to the gate. Naruto waited at the gates with one scroll in his pocket. It held all his belongings. Getting ready to go, he waited for his students, who appeared seconds later. Hi, Nifox Sensei. Sakura waved. Hey, Sensei. Sasuke nodded along. Naruto nodded back as an answer. He gestured them over and were about to take off when they heard the scream of one specific girl who was supposed to be in academy probation. Nato ran up to the team, her bag packed, a huge smirk on her face. Hey losers, Nato said, grinning. Why aren't you in the academy? Sasuke growled. My daddy let me out early. He's the Hokage, you know. Nato said vainly. Sakura clenched her teeth. The brat was back on. Same could be said for Naruto as he held back his hands to prevent himself from beating Nato silly. Naruto then spoke. You're continuing your probation after this. What? Nato asked. Yes, you need to learn that your daddy won't always be there to save you. I don't know if you noticed, but you were spoiled. Naruto spoke forcefully, obviously irritated. Is not, Nato shrieked. And on top of that you're annoying. Great. Naruto said sarcastically. I can get my daddy to fire you. Nato yelled. Fire? Naruto laughed. Fire me? The greatest ninja in Konoha who has killed over 1,000 of men. Fire me? The person stronger than the Hokage? You really want me to have grudges against this village? Naruto laughed. My dad could beat you any day. Nato yelled. Oh really, but can the daughter defend herself? Especially since you're under my custody. Naruto said coldly. You're the Hokage's daughter, beating me should be a breeze, right? Naruto asked. Nato stuttered. That's what I thought. Okay, Team 7 move out. Naruto yelled commands. Sakura and Sasuke nodded and started the path with Naruto, Nato coming behind. This is going to be one hell of a horrible trip. Naruto muttered. Minato sent Tazuna to meet Team 7 at the gates. Upon getting there, Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke greeted the man, but Nato was a different story. Do we have to protect this old ugly drunk man? Nato whined, obviously wanting to protect someone better. Yes, so shut up, or leave. Naruto said. Nato growled, pulling out a kunai. She threw it at the poor bridge builder who did nothing wrong. In a sudden flash, Naruto was in front of Tazuna holding the kunai. I will disband you from this team if you continue to do these stupid things. We do not, and I repeat, do not kill our client. Naruto said, obviously irritated. Peesh, like anyone would want to even look at him. Nato said. He actually does have a family. He's the hero of his village, building a bridge against Gato. Something you couldn't do in 100 years. So be respectful, or your probation will be made longer. Naruto said before shaking Tazuna a hand, and moving out with Sakura, Sasuke, and Nato. Tazuna walked with them before passing a huge puddle. Naruto looked down at the puddle before nodding. He passed by, and his team did so too. Idiots. Naruto mumbled before throwing 2 kunai in the puddle. Out came the 2 demon brothers holding 2 kunai. You're dead, Nifox. One of them yelled as he ran toward Naruto, wrapping his chains around him. Naruto broke out of the chains, and raced faster than the Hokage toward the brother. Naruto delivered 1 punch to the jaw, 1 jab to the solar plexus, 1 kick to the groin, and 1 pressure point in his eye. When he fell down, Naruto then yelled. Kaden. Fire-style jutsu. As a large ball of fire came out of his mouth, incinerating the demon brother. The second demon brother wrapped his chains around his arms as armor, and lunged at Naruto. Naruto grabbed his wrist, and flipped him onto the ground, making a large crater. Naruto then yelled. Wind style. Wind bullet jutsu. And waved his hand. A large wind pushed by, cutting the second demon brother in half. Naruto dusted his hands, before saying, what a shame, you didn't help Nato. Naruto said, glaring at her. Sakura and Sasuke didn't either. Nato yelled, stamping her foot. No, Sakura was scouting in the trees looking for more enemies, and Sasuke was protecting the client. You on the other hand just froze there. Naruto said before turning and leaving a grouchy Nato. Let's keep walking, Naruto said, beckoning his team. Then all of a sudden they heard Naruto yell. Duck. So Team 7 ducked except Naruto, who caught the huge sword and twirled it around his finger. Ah! Zabuza Momochi, at last we meet, old friend. Naruto said, drawing his sword. You too, Nifox. Zabuza grinned. Naruto laughed. Zabuza Momochi. Naruto said, twirling the giant sword on his finger. We meet at last, he continued. You too, Nifox. Naruto laughed. Recap end. Naruto grabbed the sword and inspected it. Sharp, but a little too clunky. Naruto said, tapping his finger on the tip, before watching the crimson substance drop out of the cut on his finger. Naruto then tossed over the sword to Zabuza, who caught it. Hand over the old geezer. Zabuza said. Sorry Zabuza, but our mission is to protect this geezer. Naruto said. Then I'll just have to take him from you. Zabuza yelled. Yeah, Naruto said, waving it off. Can Haku come out already? This is sad. He continued. Zabuza grimaced before yelling. We know you are there, Haku, come out. Soon after Haku jumped out of the trees, he growled. Zabuza-sama, this is Nifox. Are you sure you want to fight him? Haku asked, concerned for his master. I can beat him anytime. Zabuza smirked. Are we going to fight or not? Naruto asked, taking a stance. Sakura, Sasuke, Nato, back off, this is not your fight. Naruto said, beckoning them to stand behind him. But sensei, we have to help. Sakura begged. Yay, we have to help. Sasuke said, finally eager for once in his life. I'm sorry, but no. Naruto said, pushing them back. A smile graced Naruto's lips. Shall we dance? Indeed. Zabuza Momochi laughed. Naruto pulled out two sais. If you don't know what they are, look at the photo. And twirled them before pausing in a stance. Naruto grinned as Zabuza lunged forward, his sword ready to stab. Naruto jumped over Zabuza, prepared to stab his back with the sai. Zabuza lunged at last minute, and kicked Naruto back. Naruto clutched his stomach, before starting to make hand signs. Kaden. Fire-style jutsu. Naruto yelled, feeling the hot taste of fire blowing out of his mouth. Zabuza grimaced, and jumped hurriedly, his eyes widening at the size of the fireball. Wait! Only Sharingan users can use that jutsu. Sasuke exclaimed as he pulled out another kunai to protect Tazuna. Sakura just nodded, before asking, "Wait, where's Nato?" she asked, looking around. Sakura then gasped. "That freaking idiot." Sakura grumbled under her breath. Nato hid in the trees, and grinned slyly as she pulled out some kunai and shuriken to kill Zabuza. Then Nifox Sensei would praise her. Of course, Nato was about to throw it, when Haku appeared behind her. Well, does someone want to hurt my master?" Haku asked, snatching the kunai out of Nato's hands and tossing them in the snowy cold ground. "What will you do now?" Haku asked, looking emotionless at Nato. "Sensei," Nato yelled. Naruto turned, looking at the screaming Nato in the treetops. Naruto growled as he pulled out a slender katana. Naruto's body flickered next to Zabuza and sliced his back, which made him fall in pain. Naruto then rushed, hoping Zabuza would take time to recover. Naruto raced brought the trees, before growling at Haku. "Let the girl go, she has no value." Naruto yelled. "No, I've heard her. She brags about being the Hokage's daughter all the time. She would pay well for a ransom." Haku said, throwing Nato off the trees into the cold snowy ground. Naruto didn't move. "Well, go save your student," Haku said, pointing to the shivering Nato. Naruto shook his head. "It's a trap, you're buying time so Zabuza can attack me, and you know it," Naruto said. Haku grit his teeth in response. "Fine, then she's mine, and the money will go to Zabuza-sama," Haku yelled, swooping down for Nato. Haku picked her up, as Nato squirmed. "No way, I want Nifox Sensei to pick me up," Nato screeched, jumping out of Haku's arms. "That's why I stayed still, you idiot," Nato continued before jumping in front of Naruto. "I'll protect you," Nato yelled, pulling out two kunai. Haku groaned as he pulled out two senbon needles, and tossed faster than a mere genin could see. Naruto shook his head, knowing Nato couldn't save herself. Naruto jumped over Nato, and landed in front of her, before pulling her into his arms as a shield. Senbon pierced Naruto's back as he grit his teeth. Oh, Haku said sadistically. "Poison isn't good for you," Haku said, stating the obvious. Naruto grunted as he pulled the senbon out of his back, and then yelled, "Byakugan!" All of a sudden Naruto's eyes were purple. He then yelled, 64 trigrams, and started hitting all of Haku's vital points. Once Haku fell down, he picked him up, and placed him on the icy bridge. "Zabuza, he's gone," Naruto said, nursing his back with antidotes from his pockets. "How dare you!" Zabuza yelled, emotionally lunging for Naruto. Naruto caught his sword, and sent him flying back, before walking over to broken Zabuza. Naruto laughed, and pulled open Zabuza's mouth before placing a kunai in it. "Go get M Tiger," Naruto said as hundreds of men started to surround them, with Gato leading them. Zabuza smiled a bit, before racing towards them all, leaving his mark on who was the demon of the mist. Once he collapsed, Naruto made out the word that he never thought a demon could say. Thank you." Naruto smiled softly as he picked up Zabuza's body, and placed him next to Haku, a face of pure peacefulness in death. "All of us have inner demons, only in times of our loved ones being gone do we ever release it," Naruto said before turning away to see his team. He could have sworn he heard Haku's soft voice vibrating through the air. "Thank you for setting me free." Naruto walked slowly down the streets, ignoring the squealing of Sakura, and the fangirling of Nato. "Wow, just the way you saved me, you must really love me." Nato swooned. Sakura growled. Nifox-kun was hers. She was sure they'd fall in love. Sakura just knew it. Even though they couldn't see it, Those azure, ocean blue eyes were mesmerizing. Sakura smacked Nato on the head. Baka, he had two, that's what senseis are for. You're nothing special, don't get any ideas. Sakura yelled. Sasuke just walked slowly. Hey, N-Nifox sensei, would you like to go to the barbecue place with me? Sakura asked, fumbling with her hands. And me, Nato said, popping in. Ooh, and Sasuke, Nato said, grabbing his arm. Now these two will fight over me. Nato thought. After all, she was the best. Sure, Nifox sensei shrugged. Naruto looked at the menu before ordering some seared beef, with a small cup of ramen. He then looked over at the three. So, Nifox sensei, what are your hobbies? Sakura asked, trying to start conversation. Training, cooking, and protecting those precious to me. Naruto said without a thought of hesitation. So I am precious to you? Nato exclaimed. Not really. Naruto said, twisting a toothpick. I have to save my students. Trust is earned. Naruto said, nodding at the waiter while she set down a bowl of ramen and a plate of seared beef. Nato turned red as she grabbed a pair of chopsticks and muttered under her breath. Sasuke thanked the waiter as she set down a bowl of tomato udon and a small plate of fried beef. Sakura nodded happily at Nifox sensei before getting a fork and digging into her salad. Nato replaced her anger with another grin before asking. So, Nifox sensei, what do you look like under the mask? Nato said, leaning over the table and peering into Naruto's azure eyes. Confidential information, Naruto said, picking up a piece of beef with his chopsticks. Yeah, idiot, why would he show you? Sakura growled, looking back at Sasuke for him to side with her. Don't ask me. Sasuke shrugged, looking down at his food, not wanting to get involved. Nato smirked and reached out her arm to his mask and reached to pull it off. Naruto grabbed her wrist in lightning sped and placed her hand back on the table. Once again, confidential information, Naruto said. So? Nato screamed suddenly. I'm the Hokage's daughter, I get what I want. She continued, stamping her foot. Naruto shook with anger. Look here, we're not spoiled brats in this team, we are equals, okay? Naruto growled as suddenly his vision was painted red. Naruto looked around, noticing it wasn't going away. After saying goodbye to his teams, he raced home and stared at himself in the mirror to see he had unlocked 2 tomos. I'm on the path to greatness, Naruto said, smiling at himself in the mirror. You deserve it, but have you earned it? The pain you go through. Finish the test. Naruto woke up covered in sweat. What was that ungodly soft voice ringing in his head? What test did he have to finish? And who knew about his torture and pain? Brushing that aside, Naruto pulled himself up and looked over at the clock. It screamed 4 a.m. Naruto groaned as he stood up and pulled on his Anbu clothes. He then chopped some vegetables in the kitchen and stirred it with some eggs and fried rice. After sitting down and eating slowly, he felt a pang of pain in his heart. Always being alone. But that was the life of a true ninja, and Naruto knew he had to accept it. Heading out at around 4:15 a.m., he stared into the dense fog that was setting down on the village. Shivering slightly, Naruto headed over to the Hokage's house and pushed open the door. Sighing in relief of entering a warm area, Naruto headed up into Naruto's room. Naruto felt sickened at the family. Their neglected son had finally come home, but still, after going missing, they didn't care. Naruto glared at them through the small window in their door before silently entering his room. A smile graced Naruto's lips as he saw all of his sets of daggers, kunai, swords, and katanas still hanging on the stands on the walls. Naruto quickly sat down on the ruddy comforter and pulled out some weapon polish he had stolen as a child to stop his one kunai from dulling. Admiring the twisted, glossy brown bottle, he slowly dipped his rag in it and polished his weapons. Minutes later, soft snoring could be heard out the window of Naruto Namikaze's window. Naruto groaned as he leaned to the side of the end and saw an alarm clock blaring 8 a.m. Except this wasn't his alarm clock or bed or house. Naruto jumped up as he heard a very distinctive screeching voice yelling. Mom! Footsteps are leading into Naruto's room. Nato yelled. What? He must have come to his senses and came home. Kushina gushed happily. Naruto hurriedly made a genjutsu to hide his weapon racks and jumped out the window, his shoes still wet from the morning fog. Kushina pushed open the door, only to see wet footprints. She fell down, her eyes threatening to cry. What did we do to him? Kushina cried. Did we hurt him that much? She continued. Minato yawned and pulled himself out of bed only to hear his wife crying. What's wrong? Minato asked as he sped over to Kushina. We neglected him. Minato, we need to make this right. Kushina cried. I will. If you see him anywhere, maybe we can ask if he wants to stay with us all the time, and not just to sleep. Minato asked. Kushina nodded happily. Not Nifox, just Naruto. Naruto walked down the market streets filling his basket with rice, onions, and vegetables. As he was walking, he saw Lady Kushina approaching him. Lady Kushina, Naruto said, bowing at the respected lady. Naruto. Kushina said, her eyes glistening with tears. Naruto continued to bow before beginning to walk away. Wait, Kushina yelled, reaching out her arm towards him. Can you live with us fully? Not just for the bed? Kushina asked, biting her lip as tears started falling down her face. Why would I? Naruto asked, pulling his arm away. I've had enough of your family. Naruto growled. But you're part of our family too. Kushina yelled, grabbing his arm. Naruto shook Kushina off his arm and yelled. You neglected me. For years. Why would I stay with the likes of you scum? Naruto yelled as he walked off to the cashier and bought his food. And then he shined away, leaving a shocked Kushina. Oi, Naruto. Kakashi said, looking down at the recently shined Naruto. Yeah, Kakashi? Naruto asked. Come on, we need to talk. Kakashi said, beckoning him over. Sure. Naruto shrugged, walking next to Kakashi. I know you're Nifox. Kakashi said as they walked. Naruto froze. Come on, that's not what I wanted to talk about. Kakashi yelled as he kept walking. Naruto smiled. Naruto followed the silent Kakashi as he looked down at his book. So, what's so important I had to go to your house? Naruto asked. Kakashi just beckoned him to a small gray house, with beige sliding doors. After sliding a door open, he plopped down on the small rug, and beckoned Naruto to sit down. I've seen your scars, bruises, and cuts, Naruto. Even in Anbu you can't completely cover your identity. Kakashi spoke, looking over at Naruto across the table. Naruto looked down as tears started to fall from his eyes. What do you want to know? Naruto smirked, not showing Kakashi his face as he shook. What happened to you, Naruto? Kakashi said, staring at Naruto across the small table. Kushina wiped her eyes as she stood up off her knees in the supermarket. She wiped the dust off her green apron, and walked over to the produce section holding in her tears. She ignored the stares of shocked villagers, and filled her basket with vegetables, fruits, and ramen. Kushina held the ramen packet in her hand, looking at it. About a minute later her hand started shaking. Naruto loved ramen. Kushina whispered under her breath as she felt her eyes turned wet. As a baby, when I wasn't a horrible mother. Kushina continued under her breath. Kushina sucked in a breath, and headed to the checkout aisle. After buying her groceries she ran home, and locked herself in her room, settling down for a good cry. Naruto looked down, a shadow covering his eyes. This village thinks I'm a monster. Maybe I am. They beat me, burned me, raped me, and hurt me beyond repair. I am not one of those fixable plastic toys, Kakashi. Sometimes if you pull the elastic cord too far it snaps. The Hokage and his family did this to me. They endorse it. I am mentally broken, and I'm admitting to it. Don't try to fix me, Kakashi. It's been made clear I'm not worth anyone's time. Naruto said, standing up as he rubbed his arm. Kakashi scrambled up. That's not true, Naruto. He yelled. Everyone in Anbu loves you. We don't care if you're a Jinchuriki. Kakashi continued. It doesn't matter. No one is courageous enough to tell the Hokage what he's done. And until I can find a place called home, I would never be happy. Naruto said, opening the sliding door and sliding on his shoes. Oi, Naruto. Kakashi said. Naruto said curiously as he turned back at Kakashi. How would you like to live with me, and find a place to call home? Kakashi asked. Naruto ran to him, and hugged him, tears spilling from his eyes. You're safe now. Pass the test. Before it is too late, Naruto. Before he comes. Naruto woke up with a start. This voice was getting to him. Wiping his eyes, he smiled. He had found a place to call home. Smiling at his small room, he pulled himself out of bed. He stared at his new bookshelf and dusted off his dresser. He then stared at himself in the ornate small mirror before hearing a faint call. Naruto. Breakfast. Kakashi yelled. Naruto smiled happily and walked down the steps to downstairs. Hey Kakashi, Naruto said as he waved to him. Breakfast, Naruto, Kakashi said pointing to the table which was full of miso soup, rice, fish, and a small bowl of salad. Kakashi, this looks like a full-blown meal, Naruto said with curiosity. Kakashi looked over at him. Naruto, have you ever had an authentic Japanese breakfast? Kakashi asked looking over at him. Naruto shook his head. Well then, try it, it's really good, he said. Naruto nodded, and bit into a fillet of seared salmon. He smiled at how delicious it was. Like it? Kakashi asked. Yes, Naruto said happily as he dug into his miso soup. Well Naruto, get going. Your team will not appreciate you late, Kakashi said looking over at the clock. Okay, I'm going, Naruto said as he nodded. And also, Naruto spoke. What? Kakashi asked. Thanks, Naruto smiled. You're welcome, Kakashi said as Naruto raced out the door. Naruto placed on his mask, and ran out the door towards his students. Making his way to the Hokage's office, he heard a scream. Naruto turned around to see Sakura and Ino bleeding severely. What the hell happened? He asked frantically. We were training, Sakura stuttered. Then a man came out. He wore a big black cloak with red clouds. Ino cried. And he's looking for you, sensei, Sakura yelled. Naruto sighed before patting their heads and telling them to sit down. He started to use Iryo medical ninjutsu on the girls to stop the bleeding. He started wrapping Ace wrap around their arms and legs before asking, "Where's your team? They ran off, but me and Sakura got caught," Ino said holding her shoulder in pain. Naruto sighed. Then I'm going to train you too, okay? Naruto asked. Hi, Night Fox Sensei, they both said. Naruto beamed. Kushina sighed. Minato, she yelled softly. What? Minato asked sitting down next to her. I need to talk to you, Kushina said even softer. What is it, honey? Minato asked holding her hand. I wanted another child because Naruto hates us and we need a new clan heir soon. Kushina sucked in a breath. I'm pregnant. Kushina sucked in a breath. Minato, I'm pregnant. Recap finished. We're going to have a heir. Minato smiled as his eyes lit up. But what about Nato? Minato asked, his happiness dying down. I want 2 heirs, Minato. Kushina spoke strictly. 1 boy and 1 girl. She continued. Wait, what about Naruto? Minato asked. He hates us, so what's the point? Kushina asked. True, he doesn't even deserve to be clan heir. Minato nodded. Well, let's go to the hospital and get that baby gender checked. Minato said. I want a boy. Kushina smiled. Nah, I want a girl, Minato said happily. And then they walked happily to the hospital. Nato trudged toward Kakashi's house to ask him if he could train her. After all, it was a weekend and Nifox Sensei would never give his days off unless he really wanted to. Nato knocked on the door, a frown evident on her face. He better train me, she mumbled angrily. Nato gasped as she saw the familiar face of Naruto Uzumaki. Brother, Nato snarled. Sister, Naruto smirked. Nato then heard the call of Kakashi. Who's at the door, Naruto? Just a spoiled brat, Naruto replied. Kakashi walked up to the smoldering Nato, who was waiting in the doorframe. I'm not a brat, Nato screamed, stamping her foot. Kakashi sighed as Naruto glared at Nato. A normal person wouldn't have screamed, therefore you are a brat, Naruto said, gesturing to her. Nato glared at Naruto before looking over at Kakashi. Can you train me? Nato asked hopefully. Kakashi would have if he hadn't known what the Namikaze family had done to Naruto. After all the torture Naruto went through from the family, Kakashi was disappointed in them and said, No. Nato crumpled. Why not? Is it because of him? Nato said, pointing at Naruto angrily. No, he's just staying with me, Kakashi said as he shook his head. Whatever. Nifox would beat you any day. I'll go ask my dad where he lives right now. Nato smirked before heading down the dirt path to the Hokage tower. Naruto broke out into laughter, and Kakashi just smiled. Good luck with that, Nato grumbled as she ignored the dirt go between her sandals. Seeing the Hokage tower, she raced over and slammed open the door, ignoring the fact that a meeting was holding place. Nato? Minato asked, confused since he had specifically said for no one to bother him during the meeting. Dad, where does Nifox Sensei live? Nato asked hurriedly. Sweetie, that's confidential info. I don't care. Nato yelled, anger evident in her voice. Fine, fine, he lives in. Minato said, opening his cabinet and staring at Nifox's file. I don't know, Minato said in shock as he set the paper down. Dad, Nato whined, slamming the door shut. Minato laughed meekly in embarrassment and said, sorry about that, sir. The man just looked confused. Naruto smiled under his mask at his main excelling students, Ino and Sakura. They had mastered the go-to chakra punch for fiery woman like Tsunade. Naruto had also destroyed their girlish crushes on Sasuke, by waking them up at 5, and tying them to a post for 3 hours if they gushed over Sasuke when he walked by. Another tactic he had used was burning all photos of Sasuke they had, and stealing precious things that Sasuke had given to them, such as old kunais, and lotions from Makoto's makeup that she didn't want it anymore, and insisted on him giving it to girls so it didn't go to waste. Naruto had lectured them over and over that on a mission personal relationships could bring them down. Working well as a team was fine, but caring for them as your lover or sister could bring you down if you weren't on the same level of power. They had understood and treated each other as sisters, teaching each other so they could be on the same power level. They were now learning medical ninjutsu, although Naruto wanted to teach them ninjutsu and genjutsu. Focus your chakra into your hands, and make that fish breathe again. Naruto instructed, slapping 2 dead fish on floor he had gotten from the Ichiraku ramen shop. Sakura winced at the smell, while Ino just had a look of disgust on her face. Well, come on, Naruto said, pointing to the fish. We still have ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu, and so much more. Naruto smiled. Sakura gulped, and Ino wiped her eyes, both scared at what was coming to them. Let the training begin. Naruto swung himself out of bed, smiling. Naruto had been living with Kakashi for a little over 2 months. They had gotten very close, and surprisingly Nato hadn't told Minato, or else Minato would have stomped over and demanded his child back. Nearly running down the steps, Naruto jumped the last 3, and raced to the small kitchen. Hey Kakashi. Naruto waved. Yo, Naruto. Kakashi answered, looking at him from the stove area. Naruto sat down at the table and ate his breakfast like he did every single morning. Once he finished, he walked over to Kakashi, and engrossed him into a huge hug. Kakashi flinched at the contact, but slowly gave in. Thank you for saving me, Naruto said, his eyes watering. Don't worry, that's what big brothers do, Kakashi said as he ruffled his hair. Now, go, you're going to be late, Kakashi said, pushing him toward the door. I am going, Naruto said as he jumped out of the doorframe. Stay safe, Kakashi muttered. Naruto raced out the door, thinking about how great his life was now. He was living with his favorite mentor, and was a teacher looking over the next generation. He had a rare Kekai Genkei, and surprisingly wasn't treated as a weapon. Every time he wore his mask he was respected and not beat. He could get used to this life. Just keep the mask on, no such thing as taking it off. Nato groaned as she slumped against a tree. She had raided her dad's office to no avail. She hadn't found where Nifox lived. It couldn't be that hard, she would just ask when Nifox came. Nato heard a rustle. A man with red eyes blazing, and a man with shark-like features stepped out of the bushes. They both wore cloaks with red clouds. Ah, Nato Uzumaki. Itachi laughed. Kisame just chuckled. What's so funny? Nato growled angrily. Nothing, but from investigation you like Nifox, right? Itachi asked. So what? Nato asked, blushing furiously. Well, you might want to say your final goodbyes. Itachi laughed, pulling out a kunai. Ah, Nato Uzumaki. The man in the cloak laughed. Be ready to say your final goobies to Nifox, Itachi, Kisame warned, and then they poofed away. Naruto jumped through the trees, landing on the grassy training grounds. Nato stomped over Nifox and patted his shoulder. Sensei, where do you live? Nato asked. That's confidential. Naruto sighed, simply searching the forests for chakra signatures of his other 2 students. But, Sensei, Nato whined, clutching his arm. Naruto shook her off, and waved to Sakura, who recently had just gotten to the training grounds from the cold trees that made her shiver, with wet drops in her pink bubblegum hair. About 2 minutes later Sasuke had silently jumped from the freezing bushes, coated in frozen raindrops, with small light beams of sunlight peering through the edges. Nato pulled on furry blue gloves, and a red coat that went down to her knees. She stomped through the thick snow, and slumped in front of a frozen tree, snow coating the bottom of her pants. Sakura yawned as she pulled on a furry knit cap, and a pair of pink boots, with a matching jacket. Sasuke put on a thin blue sweatshirt, and a warm fluffy blue scarf. Naruto sighed, and closed his eyes, before he heard a rustling in the bushes. "Warming up, I see?" Itachi laughed as he looked over at Nato. "Didn't tell your sensei that we were looking for him?" He laughed. "What a bad student." Itachi fake pouted before body flickering next to Naruto, and shoving a kunai in his back. Naruto grunted, and burst into sand. "Ah, sand clones." Itachi noticed as the real Naruto jumped from the trees, and aimed for Itachi's head. Itachi caught Naruto's foot, and threw him on the ground before weaving the sign. Kaden. Fire-style jutsu. And blowing fire out of his mouth aiming at Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened at the fireball as he weaved hand signs. Water style. Water dragon jutsu. A large elegant dragon formed out of the water as Sakura, Sasuke, and Nato gaped at the dragon which raced toward the fireball, creating a thick layer of steam. "Sensei." Naruto heard as he turned around to face Kisame. "Let Itachi take care of those kids, and let's have some fun." Kisame smiled his pointy teeth, and eyes begging for bloodlust. "Not if I can count on it." Naruto smirked racing toward Kisame with a katana. "Itachi." Sasuke cried as he tried to charge up a weak Chidori. "Foolish brother," Itachi coldly said as he pushed Sasuke back into a tree, blood evidently running down his face. "Don't crack under pressure, Sasuke, that only leads to your death, and the death of your teammates. Believe, Sasuke, believe." Sasuke heard in his mind the wise words Nifox sensei had spoke so fiercely when training him. Not to crack under pressure. Suddenly Sasuke had a plan, ready to put in action, but it was cut short when he heard Sakura's blood-curdling scream. Naruto turned around hearing Sakura's scream. "Oh no," Naruto thought, turning to Kisame who looked nothing near to tired. "Hey, on the bright side that proves they're not dead yet." Kisame smirked, his long sword ready kill. "I hope not." Naruto growled, lunging for Kisame's face to punch. Kisame dodged, and did some seals for a genjutsu. Naruto looked around, the genjutsu was weak. He was in a sea, drowning, feeling the water go in his lungs. Sharks circling him. Naruto screamed, as a shark bit his arm in the gray and white world. Naruto closed his eyes before reopening it in the Mangekyo Sharingan he had gotten from Itachi. As soon as his eyes turned red, Naruto created an orange Susanoo, literally bursting out of the genjutsu, before smashing Kisame's head in with the very same sword he had wielded all his life. His own sword. Sakura screamed as hot, wet tears streamed down her face. "Wow, that's all it took?" Itachi laughed in the genjutsu. He had made Sakura see everyone she loved die in front of her, before being forced to kill herself with a knife. "Please stop," Sakura cried, trying to break out of the genjutsu, throwing punches aimlessly. "You knew this was coming, why would you attack me?" Itachi asked, weaving signs to incinerate the girl while she was still in the genjutsu. "Stop," Itachi heard as he turned around to see a pissed-off Nato. Nato ran toward Itachi throwing some kunai, which he dodged with ease. Nato slid under Itachi's leg while he had dodged, and grabbed Sakura, pulling her into the frozen forest. "Smart," Itachi smirked coldly as he slowly walked in the forest. "Sasuke," Naruto yelled, racing to his battered prodigy. "Itachi." Sasuke coughed out, wiping the blood off the corners of his mouth. "Just be quiet," Naruto growled, starting to heal him with medical ninjutsu. "No," Sasuke groaned. "Save Sakura, she's in a powerful genjutsu, and Nato. They're being hunted down. Just leave me here," he said as tears fell down his face. "Now wait," Naruto exclaimed, continuing to heal. "I said no," Sasuke yelled, grabbing Naruto's shirt. "Fine," Naruto said, shocked. His prodigy defied him. "I'm hiding you in this bush," Naruto said, laying him down gently. "Take this, it will slowly heal you, not as good as medical ninjutsu though." Naruto shrugged, pulling out a bottle of yellow small pills. "Take only 3 inches," Naruto said, holding 3 fingers up. "Oh okay," Sasuke coughed out, pocketing the pills. Naruto started to race down the frozen path before hearing, "Thank you." Naruto just smiled. Sasuke grunted in pain as a headache formed. Ignoring the pain, he opened the small glass bottle his sensei had given him. Remembering Naruto's instruction about only taking 3, he popped them in his mouth, and felt them travel down his throat. Seconds later a wave of relief traveled over his body, the pain subsiding slowly. After being able to pull himself up, he slowly reached for his kunai pouch, and bandaged his head just in case. After doing so, Sasuke raced to the frozen forest, with hopes to avenge his clan. Itachi smirked at Naruto. So, Nighthawk versus Weasel? Itachi laughed. What about it? Naruto asked irritated. Just the fact that you think you can win. Itachi hissed. Naruto rolled his eyes and lunged with a kunai at Itachi's leg, hoping to cut into an artery. Itachi's eyes widened as he felt blood drip down his ankle. Recovering, Itachi threw shuriken at speeds unreadable unless you had the Sharingan. Naruto activated his Sharingan, and proceeded to throw shuriken as well. After, Naruto wove signs, and then yelled. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Millions of Narutos appeared jumping on Itachi. Itachi groaned and defeated them at amazing speeds. But while fighting he didn't notice someone waiting to strike. From behind, Naruto struck Itachi with a Rasengan. HMPH. Itachi said before bursting into crows and flying away. May we meet again, Nighthawks. Sasuke burst through the trees, each step getting slightly faster with the pills helping him. Seeing Nighthawks, Sasuke jumped down to see him helping Sakura, and tending to her cuts. Nato sat next to Sakura pulling weeds out of her hair, and holding the pad of rubbing alcohol on Sakura's shoulder to make sure the injuries didn't get disinfected. Sakura was currently crying, tears landing on Nighthawks. Sasuke noticed he didn't mind, as if he had done this before. Shushing her quietly, and wiping her tears away, telling her it was all a genjutsu. She cried aimlessly, sobbing into his chest. Sasuke noticed, Itachi wasn't there. Where's Itachi? Sasuke growled, jumping down on the ice. He was heavily injured, so he went away. Naruto responded. You didn't chase him? Sasuke asked angrily. Sakura and Nato were in desperate need of assistance. Naruto said calmly. So what? Sasuke asked madly. My students' lives matter to me. Naruto said, narrowing his eyes under his mask, tension slowly being built in his voice. No, Itachi was worth killing. Sasuke yelled, raising his fist, and slamming it into Naruto's mask. Sasuke then stalked off angrily. Sakura then asked, Sensei, why did you let him punch you? Naruto sighed. Because Sakura, I don't want him taking it out on you, Nato, or the villagers. He finished. I'll go get him. Nato smiled, prepared to mount off. No, let him blow off some steam. Naruto said, wrapping Sakura's head, which was slowly bleeding. He needs to know the truth. Stupid, ignorant, goddamn idiot of a sensei. Sasuke yelled, punching a tree, bark breaking as he did so. All he had to do was capture him. Sasuke growled. All he had to do was let me kill him. Sasuke cried, breaking a tree with his chidori. Ah, very testy are we? A sarcastic smooth voice rang out from the icy forest. Who's there? Sasuke questioned, pulling out a kunai. A person who can lead you to Itachi. The voice laughed. I'll meet you in the Chunin exams. The voice laughed again. What? Sasuke asked. No one replied. Come back. Sasuke yelled. Once again no reply. Fuck you. Sasuke yelled, hoping to get an angry response. No answer. And with that, Sasuke walked down the icy trail, back to his team, hoping that everyone, everything, and his sensei would be okay. Push. You're almost there, Kushina. Yelled the nurse as she held Kushina's hand. Ah. Kushina yelled in response, almost breaking Minato's hand, who was on the other side of her bed. Come on, honey, for the air. Minato exclaimed. Sweat was dripping down Kushina's face, as she continued to keep pushing, for the little heir who would take over the Namikaze Uzumaki clan one day. Seconds later, the cry of Kushina Uzumaki, and a newborn baby boy could be heard. Good job, Kushina. The nurse smiled. You did it, honey. Minato said before kissing Kushina on the lips. I did it, said the tired Kushina, as she held her arms out. It's a bumbling baby boy. He's in good health too. The nurse said happily, as she rested the baby in Kushina's hand. What do you want to name him? Minato asked Kushina. Menma Uzumaki. Kushina said as her eyes watered while cooing the happy baby. The next heir, Kushina whispered before falling asleep with the baby in her hands. Naruto headed home, after dropping off Nato and a moody Sasuke. Sakura had been so shook up that Naruto had offered to give her psychological training to prevent it from happening again. After a long talk with her parents, Sakura was to live with Nifox for as long as it took. Taking out his keys, he pushed open the door, preparing to smell the scent of ramen, and his smiling big brother welcoming him home with a hug. Instead he found a cold, bloody body. Naruto rushed toward it, checking the pulse, slowly decreasing. Pulling off the bag covering its head, he saw Kakashi's cold face, breathing heavy. Naruto. Kakashi smiled, rubbing his hand against his cheek. I guess time was cut short, no? He asked softly. Who did this to you? Naruto cried, holding his hand steadily. I'll kill them, he added, hugging his big brother. Shish. It was the price of caring for you. Kakashi whispered. And I don't regret it. Kakashi smiled. Now, goodbye, Kakashi said, hugging him. I love you, little brother. He whispered before his pulse stopped. No, Naruto cried, proceeding to do CPR on him to no avail. He kept pushing his heart, over and over again. Why would you leave me? Naruto whispered, hugging him. Why? Naruto sobbed into his cold chest. Sakura, who had just recently barfed in the doorway, ran to Nifox. Sensei, she said, crouching to her knees. He's gone, Naruto cried, sobbing into his arms. It's okay, Sensei, Sakura said, hugging him. He was there in her time of need, so she had to in his. We'll make sure he's avenged, Sakura said, her eyes coldly hardening. I promise, she whispered, as Naruto continued to sob into Sakura's chest, crying about his one and only Ni-san. I promise. Sakura and Naruto had called the shinobi police to search for any clues from Kakashi's murder, only to find nothing. After a long, strenuous 4 hours of searching for clues, it was determined that Kakashi's death case was going to be a long one. After the 4 hours, the shinobi police called it a day and gave up looking. As soon as they left, Naruto fell to his knees, glistening tears forming in his eyes. God damn it, he muttered. No fucking evidence. He growled, slamming the door shut so the shinobi police couldn't hear him. Sensei, they're trying, Sakura said, trying to calm him down, holding him by the shoulders. No, if they were trying, they would find out Kakashi's murderer, easy. Naruto snarled back. Sakura sighed. This won't be easy, she muttered. It seemed like the entire village had been affected by Kakashi's death. From the old ladies that had gotten Kakashi's assistance, to the small academy students who wanted to train with him when they got older, all mourned him. The sun spoke otherwise, shining brightly through all windows of the Leaf Village, which particularly annoyed Naruto, feeling as if the gods were taunting him. Minato, however, didn't feel that bad, considering he had a little heir named Menma to take care of. Kushina, on the other hand, wept about Kakashi, who always took care of the kids when she was out. Why are you not crying? Your prodigy student just died. Kushina wept, wiping her eyes while holding Menma. Because, Minato said, taking Menma from Kushina's arms. We have a little beautiful heir who needs us. He finished snuggling Menma in his arms. Naruto walked down to the Hokage's house, holding his report. He had gone on an assassination mission, and had written a report strictly after. Right now, work was his life. It took his focus off his brother's death, off his neglect, off all the pain around him. Naruto wondered why the Hokage wasn't in his office these past couple days, but shrugged it off as laziness. As Naruto arrived at his door, he knocked heavily on the wood. A couple seconds later, Kushina pulled open his door, her face sunken with exhaustion. Hi, Nifox. She smiled weakly, bags evident under her eyes. Hi, Naruto replied timidly. Oh boy, Kushina muttered under her breath. What? Naruto asked, tensing up. Nothing. Kushina sighed out, before hitting the floor. Kushina, Naruto yelled, as he picked her up. Kushina woke up in a hospital bed, her kind hazy. Minato? She asked wearily. Nope, Kushina heard. As her eyes cleared up, she saw Nifox leaning against the wall. Nifox? She asked groggily, laying back in her bed. Yep, Naruto replied. Oh Nifox, you're only 12, you shouldn't have to deal with fainting women yet. Kushina giggled as she tried to pull herself out of bed. Stop, Naruto exclaimed as he ran at lightning speed and pushed her back in the bed. Your body can't walk yet, he then said, resorting back to his cold self. But, my baby. She sighed, closing her eyes tiredly. Baby? Naruto asked curiously. Yes, haven't you heard? My little baby bundle of joy, Menma. Kushina said happily, hugging herself tight. Oh, Menma. Naruto talked to himself before standing up. Well, I have to go. Naruto said strictly in the doorway. Wait, Nifox. Kushina yelled, holding her arm out. Yes? Naruto asked briskly, itching to get out of the hospital. Find my son Naruto. She wept. He hates us, but I want him as a heir, and the Anbu couldn't find him. She continued to weep. But, maybe you can. She finished wiping tears from her face. I'll try, Naruto said blandly as he stepped out of the room and raced out of the hospital. I'll try. Minato, your wife just passed out from exhaustion, go visit her. Asuma lectured, trying to pull Minato out of his chair. She can wait, right now I have to set Menma for his bedtime and read him a story. Minato sighed, hugging Menma close. Be but your wife, Asuma exclaimed tiredly. She can wait. Minato glared, his eyebrows furrowing. Fine, Asuma growled, stepping out of the house. Your wife is too good for you, anyway. Days went by with only Kurenai, Asuma, and the occasional visit from Nifox to cheer Kushina up. Kushina often tried to get a hold of Minato, only to know that he was too busy with Menma. Goddamn that Minato, she muttered under her breath, as she set the hospital phone down for the 4th time that day. He can't even visit me? She growled, clenching her fists. Shadows covered her face as she looked down, tears forming in her eyes. Why the hell did I think having a child was a good idea? She wept, covering her face with her hands. Due to her neglect of self-care, her hair was strewn across her tear-covered face, tangles evident in the once luscious knots of red hair she had. Minato later, right now you have to care for yourself. Kushina heard as she wiped her eyes. Nifox? She asked, looking up. Guessed right. Naruto shrugged, leaning against the doorway. Why doesn't Minato love me? She asks, looking straight at him. He does, just not the way he loves Menma. Naruto sighed. I see. Kushina said, looking down angrily, balling up her fists. I see. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.